Breaking Barriers is brought to you by the Dirt Podcast. Season 5 delivers expert insights on soil fertility and crop nutrition, plus weather and market trends to help you plan with confidence. Listen to the Dirt at nutrient-economics.com. Welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D, your direct line to Randy Dowdy and David Hula, here to help fellow farmers unlock the potential in their fields. Are you looking to implement best practices that maximize ROI? You've come to the right place. Real value, real yield, real ROI. Breaking Barriers with R&D starts now.
Well, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Man, it is, I think about getting ready to do this podcast, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, we got another podcast to do. I need to be spraying, or I need to be doing something else. But then when I think about it, Dowdy, I just get to see your smiling face when I'm on doing this podcast. It's like, this is awesome. So
it's getting deep. It's getting deep, David.
Yeah, it is.
If I look like Shania Twain, I could understand why you'd say that. But considering I'm a far cry from that,
Yeah.
now you just being nice, or just telling a lie. One or the other.
The funny thing is, I was, as you well know, doing the Total Acre Crop Tours, and I was with Mike Yeager last week, and you know who I saw? I saw Ms. Mike Yeager, and so got a big old hug there, so that made my day first and foremost. But then we didn't get a chance to go to his farm. But Dowdy, his father-in-law was so looking forward to having a chance to visit with me. As Mike was taking me to the airport, we weren't very far. I said, Mike, turn this vehicle around. Let's go talk to your father-in-law. So I got a chance to visit with him. So it's not often you get to meet some of your fans. And he says he doesn't miss the Breaking Barriers podcast at all. So I don't have the memory like you do, Dowdy, but I know it's Mike Yeager's father-in-law, so I wanted to give him a shout out today. So it was my pleasure to visit with him and, just to go around with a bunch of growers. But I am back home, and you can tell, I think everybody can hear, running a little croupy, feel fine, just been talking too much. You know how I get. Don't suck on a cough drop or nothing. My voice.
Oh yeah. Well, you were in Iowa and Illinois last week, and this week I think you were in Nebraska and Indiana. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, and
I know I'm headed to Ohio at the coast, and then I go from there to Minneapolis or Minnesota. So I'll be right there with you, brother. I'm in Georgia. Just been in Michigan with Easton. We had a great little over a week and a half, and we got ponds hitting the ground. Last time I checked, we had tagged like 282. I expect we're probably 60% done, so hopefully we'll have over 400. That's a lot of mouths to feed, but unfortunately they don't all live, David. But we'll see what we get. I got interns there that's holding down the ship. They're checking ponds every day, making sure mama's doing her job, and whether or not we're bottle feeding. And so we've got, I don't know, 25 or 30 in the barn right now that we're bottle feeding. Mama's just wasn't doing a good job, so we took over. So we got 7 interns there, and everybody's giving it 110%. So I just stopped. I landed. Easton went back to his mother today when we landed, and I went by and looked at the cornfield. And on the way home, I hadn't quite made it there when we were supposed to start. So if the audience sees that I'm transitioning from a truck to my house, then that's why. But it's hot in Georgia. I think we're 92 degrees right now. We had some rain, but the water has the afternoon thunderstorm chances have kind of dried up. Very few clouds in the sky. We need it for sure. We've had enough cloudy days for the last 2 weeks. And when I was out there walking, I was walking 4 or 5 different hybrids, and they were all at different populations. And you can tell that some of the populations didn't like cloudy days the last 2 weeks. just like good news is we got them out here in different populations. So we're learning something. Some of these hybrids I have zero experience with. So I put them out there spreading risk. And we separated David, 4,000. We go from 24 to 28, 32, 36. We got a few out there at heavier pops, but, you know, anything below 36 is just filled all the way out to the ear, the tip of the ear. But you start getting that 40, 44, and 48,000, you better have sunshine in South Georgia and no clouds. And we have not had that the last 2 weeks. So still going to be some good corn. We're far enough along that I won't say all our kernels are set, but I got a pretty good idea what we're going to keep. And we'll, we'll see, Dave.
Well, what I want to know is on your second planting, you asked Nathan to go out there and count, see how many plants had tillers, and he called you and said, "Hey, we got a problem. They all got tillers." So with that cloudy weather, did you make it out to that field? You probably didn't make it that far yet.
I hadn't made it there. I went to the March 3rd, 4th, and 5th planting, the
Sure.
oldest stuff, which is near the airport. I went by there. I had enough time to go by there and look. I'll try to visit that either this afternoon or tomorrow. It's near my house, so I can go by there and check on it later and give you back a report. But I don't know for sure what we got there yet.
Yeah. Well, I know you said you've been had a few cloudy days, and then you were getting some afternoon thunderstorms. I got back last night and had to clean out one of our pop-up tanks because we had a load of that stuff coming from R.W. Griffin coming in sometime today or tomorrow, so we could easy drop that on some corn. But we have gotten dry again, Dowdy. It's like we were getting rains a couple of weekends ago, had a little over 3 inches, but it is turned off. We're in the mid 90s right now. And they say we might set a record tomorrow of 96, 97. So we got sunshine. We got sunshine, buddy. So I need some moisture. And I find myself sitting in the John Deere 412R sprayer. Johnny had planted a bunch of beans up here at the Western Farm. And I felt like with some of the grass, we need to get this burned down and pre-emergence out before they pop up and we lose all the moisture we had. But I did not walk in a cornfield yet since I got back. So shame on me, but priority is let's run this sprayer. So when you're back now, are y'all going to be doing anything in your crops, Dowdy? Or, I mean, I don't know if you got an airplane getting ready to go, or you're going to be irrigating, fertigating. Kind of what's your thoughts, and then I'll talk about where what's on the plan for us for the next week or
Right now, a valuable commodity is an ag pilot. I mean, you just about can't get any of them even call you back, David. I mean, a lot of them, have retired, and the 2 or 3 that I know, I mean, everybody I've talked to is 2 to 3 weeks behind. Wind's been blowing, they don't want flying high winds, and you understand why. And, it's just everybody got their name in the hat. A lot of corn's been planted, and a lot of it's was planted at the same time. So, there's no high clearance sprayers down here virtually at all for spraying stuff yourself. So you need to ask your ag pilot what it take for him to come down here and fly some corn for me. I guarantee I could load the wagon with a bunch of customers right now, but I talked to 2 different people this week about just availability, and everybody is just covered up. I mean, I'm gonna fertigate it if I don't get an answer the next day or two about flying so on. I'm gonna chemigate it. That's gonna be our best corn anyhow, but I'm gonna chemigate. That's my plan. We'll just send it through the pivot. Not exactly what I had planned on doing, but that's probably what we're gonna do.
Well, you just need Easton to grow up a little bit. You can have him a drone, and he could be taking care of that for you.
Well, he tells me that he ain't interested in the drone. He wants to be an ag pilot. So, I don't. Who knows by the time he gets to that age? But
Yeah.
he's still talking that tune of wanting to fly crop duster. So
Well,
if he ends up being as big as me, probably going to have to re-engineer a cockpit big as me, big enough for him to fit in it.
I hear you, Randy. I know Matt Crabb, my crop aerial applicator, he did some trials not long ago, and he's anxious to get on the podcast. It just didn't work out today, but maybe the next trial, because he had a helicopter, a drone, and an airplane, and then a ground rig, if I recall. And they've done some trials, and he's anxious and he wants to do that same thing on air farm. Don't know if he'll get the helicopter, but he does want to do comparisons. And because you hear all this work about how come a drone might be so much better, and he's in the business, and there's some total acre guys, Caleb Waters and Dirk, and they watched him fly, and they say they've never seen a air tractor guy get so close to the ground. Well, at the top of the crop, let's put it that way. So I'm going to be anxious to hear him what some of the results he has gathered from that trial. He wants to share that with us on one of the podcasts, Dowdy. But
Right.
but for us right now, we started some pivots this morning, and we did not fertigated. We easy drop before I left. We put the easy drops on the upper sprayer, and we'll work on that. And so that'll be one of my focuses. Oh, make sure I got still going on it. Barley's been running the combine, cutting some wheat. He was just trying to call me, so hopefully everything's all right. But the corn, we had easy drop to Citrus, any of or much of their dryland corn outside of the home farm because we're dry and no rain in the forecast. So it's hard to get excited about that. I know I got enough nitrogen to carry us to V8, V9. So we're going to hold off just a little bit, and hopefully we'll get some rain in the forecast. I know with the whole concept of the easy drop and, dribbling right next to the road, you get that good Lord's wicking ability because it's going to pull in fertilizer. But yet I'm kind of going to hold out. In Total Acre, we talk about saving X amount for that late application, and I feel like that might be where we are next week. So we're kind of holding out. Then the rest of our management, we'll start doing some micronutrient stuff, and then we'll get to where we're spraying maybe some fungicides. We like to prime that crop. But then most importantly, we're looking at our soybeans. We got beans that are the earliest ones barley planted. We're at that V6, V7 stage down. They're starting to bloom. Pull some tissue samples. Potash levels are good. I know it's a race to get nitrogen up. And then hopefully we can keep that potash levels where they are. And then, Dowdy, I've heard you talk about making sure your potash doesn't drop to below a certain level, and the Total Acre guys know what that level is. Hopefully we don't miss that target. I think we're going to stay on track for that. And then, cut wheat. I know Estes Concaves was a sponsor last couple of weeks. I'm still going to give them a shout out today. Barley started cutting some wheat Wednesday, and the yields are not up to par. We had a cold February and extremely dry spring, so we didn't make tillers, and then we lost some late tillers. Wheat yields are right at that 80 bushel. You can see spots in the field get into the 90s, but I'm talking hedgerow to hedgerow. Test weights have been stout. Moisture is in that 12.6 to, I think they cut some at 14.4. So we're in good shape there. Getting the beans planted, getting some double crop beans in the ground. There's a race to get them in the ground to capture whatever moisture we have going on. So we've finished one particular variety. Barley's in another variety. And then he'll get into the third one either probably tomorrow. And then after that, we'll finish that on Monday or Tuesday. And then we'll get into those black oats as cover crop. And like to get those taken care of. Now, shifting to cover crops. You know, during the total acre meetings while I was in, let's see, Nebraska, I was in Illinois and Iowa last week, and I was also in Indiana. There's different ways to get cover crops in the ground. You can fly them on. You can, let's see, drill them. You can spread them. But the one thing I'm going to say, cover crop, it's the last word is crop. If you're asking it to do anything like hold nutrients, hold the world together, help your next crop because you're going to give some biology in there, treat it like a crop. Don't treat it like you're just trying to do something to capture some cost share. There was one of the total acre guys drills his cover crop. And I applauded him so because there were reasons he does it because he's trying to get it established well. He uses that cedar to anchor the cover crops in the ground, but it's also anchoring the residue, getting it closer to where we can, allow that residue to break down. Now, I know this is early. I mean, we're just now getting their crop in the ground. People have, had the crop. Most of the corn I've looked at in the last 4 weeks has been anywhere from V2 to where we were V6, 7, and some of it almost at V8. So why am I talking about that? I'm just wanting growers to make a plan, try to figure it out. Because if it's a matter of us drilling it or getting the air tractor guy in there to broadcast it, then let's get it in the ground early enough so they can do it. Now, when I was in Brazil with Alex Harrell the first week of December, one of the things that those guys do out there is they plant their corn, and then 3-4 weeks later, after the crop is up, they go in there with a seeder and drill their cover crops between the corn rows. And I'm thinking there's no way that's going to do anything. But one of the guys out in Kansas and Nebraska, y'all ought to listen to this. They would drill. Now, if you got herbicides like we do to control grasses, it's not going to work out. But they were drilling 2 rows of cover crop, sometimes 3 rows of cover crop with a 7.5-inch cedar. And when they harvested the corn, that cover crop was established enough, it would take off. And then they would go in there and let the cattle graze. Wouldn't work in my part of the world because their grass residual herbicide would take care of it. But it's just an option for some folks. And I thought that was intriguing. And then we think of the biology from the cover crop addressing the corn. Now they got biology from the corn crop going straight to the cover crop, and it's actually a crop.
Looking for expert insights to power smarter decisions on your farm? The Dirt Podcast features industry voices diving into what matters most: soil fertility, market trends, agronomic strategies, and practical tips you can use in the field. Get the information you need to stay ahead in today's evolving ag landscape. Search The Dirt, an economic podcast, on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube, or visit nutrient-economics.com to tune in.
So Dowdy, you look a little bit more relaxed. You're not bouncing around like you were earlier. And I don't know what speed you were doing, but I was seeing some road traffic signs go by the window pretty fast. Therefore,
I don't know if it was hula fast, but I was about 10 over the speed limit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then the dirt road's kind of bumpy. So
yeah, I get it. Well, I figured you had a paved road all the way to your house by now.
Oh no. We in rural South Georgia. There ain't enough splosh dollars, or they blame it on the fact that we can do CRP and put trees in covenants to help reduce taxes, and it reduces the tax base. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Well, some of the things, I guess now I want to kind of I know you're getting ready to get on the crop tour. I just want to give the audience a little update. As a whole, Dowdy, I've been in Delaware. You and I were in Kentucky. I've been in Iowa and Illinois, Nebraska, and Indiana. All in all, I see why the market's doing what it's doing. The corn crop looks pretty decent. The fear that I have, now a lot of it's behind, but not too far behind, but there is not a whole lot of moisture down deep. And a lot of folks are starting to run dry. But when we were digging corn, I think people got tired of hearing you talk about making sure they had the right germination depth to the point where they were saying we were running out of notches to plant the corn any deeper. So they checked that box, Dowdy. Now there was a few that had not, and we talked about it. The roots, clearly you can see those guys that are putting products in furrow, those that are not. There's differences there. We're split stalks. It's still a little early for that. I did see where one of the total acre guys sent me a picture, and they think that they're seeing some northern leaf blight on some young corn already. A little nerve wracking, especially after we just came off a bad year with southern rust in the Midwest. Soybeans, Dowdy. Some check the box on singulation. Some just wanted to get it in the ground. It's something about that right thumb I hear you talk about.
Well, we got the same old problems, David. Some people call soybeans poverty beans, and they don't like to fertilize them, and they just doing it for rotation, but they need them to make money. And the cheap bushels is for sure singulating. There's definitely some free bushels there. And what it's going to take to get people to do it. I mean, obviously, getting rid of double hole and triple hole plates, that needs to go away. Go to a single hole plate, use technology, let your dollars and upgrades the planters, either the speed tubes or the exact emerge. Those things help for sure. But narrow row spacing. I mean, now you can not have to have that technology and put half the seed on rows, if on 15-inch rows versus 30s. 15s don't work well. There's a lot of white mold pressure, but you know, David, any way we can singulate those seeds, spread them out in the drill some, let them stretch your leg, get them about that far apart. That's the
Yep.
goal. And let them branch, let them do their thing. There's some free bushels there for sure.
Now,
But
one of the things that during the crop tour in Nebraska, Bob Larson had a chance to, he had 2 rows of that arrow tube. And I've heard some folks that have shared, the whole concept of the air tube. I mean, I think you were instrumental in that design. I'm sure you got a piece of the patent and you're getting all kinds of royalty and all that. But the corn, they're saying that that's doing partly well, but they said the difference really is you go from a regular meter to the speed tube from Precision, which is an improvement on a regular seed tube, and then you get to the exact emerge where folks feel that that's a little bit more superior than the speed tube. They said that arrow tube is more superior than the exact emerge, and I'm like, that was interesting. I didn't get a chance to go see that. I hope maybe during your crop tour you can see some of those, because that would be intriguing to see if that'd be another advantage to this technology. You mentioned technology earlier. Technology is good when it works.
and it'll make Billy Graham cuss when it don't. That's a fact. It ain't enough patience in the world when it don't work when you need to be running. Especially when the man that's going to work on it has to look in a book or get a DTAC or get a case, or you call in and they ain't never heard of the problem before, and then we paying $180 an hour, and so much. It's $500 just to get them show up. Technology is great when it ain't costing you a bunch of money because it's down. But when it works, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It can help pay for itself pretty fast. But I'm glad to hear the guys are planting deeper, David. I mean, it's a simple way to increase bushels and get proper root development. Most guys, they want the corn to come out of the ground fast, and they don't have the heat or the GDU accumulation to support it. So they plant it shallower to get it to come out of the ground. And then there's problems. One of the things I was looking for is just brace roots above ground. David, we just don't have them. I mean, we might have less than 5%, maybe probably 2 to 3%, where there's any brace roots above ground at all. Everything's at ground level or below. We don't have any secondary brace roots above ground at all. And I looked at that today at all populations. On the end rows, you can see a little bit of it, but you kind of understand why. Just simply because of we didn't change the depth. Just the dirt's getting, the soil's getting a little bit firmer, and you're just not maintaining depth, not maintaining the depth that you're shooting for. But once you get out there and you're planting, I mean, David, we just don't. I don't know if we'd see 2 to 3%. I mean, it ain't there. Yeah, and there ain't many people listening today. I'll be willing to bet you that don't see brace roots above ground. That's one of the two things that I think that you and I have had going for us for a long time that people just were fearful of is we just don't have a lot of brace roots above ground. I did not split a stalk. I just got off a plane. I didn't have a knife in my truck. TSA would have failed miserably if I'd had a knife and got it through all the way to Georgia. But I didn't have a knife with me to split a stalk. But, the first thing I look for, if I see brace roots above ground, I know the crown stopped up. I ain't even got to split a stalk. So I'm anxious to get back over there and do some looking before I hit the road on Monday, just to see if we got that crown stopping up. One thing I challenge, if Rhonda's listening with Farm Journal and she writes an article, or, or all the listeners, I really want them to take and go in their fields, and I really want them to walk. And one thing I'm gonna challenge everybody with the growers with total acre to do is every time we pull a tissue sample, let's split a stalk. And let's just see what the crown looks like. And David, we go there all the time and we see it stopped up. We just want to understand what point it's starting to stop up. I know when you and I were in Kentucky, we could see some V4, V5 corn that the crown was already stopping up. And some of that was, from the fertilizer injury, for sure, burning off some of the early roots, burning off all the root hairs and all that. But David, a really good grower sent me a picture that same day where no anhydrous was put out there to burn off any roots, and he's already seen it in his, and it was V5 corn. So it's happening in the Midwest, and that's the next picture. I mean, deeper planting is a way to help with it, but it's not the end all. But I really want to see when people start seeing that crown or that pith starting to stop up at the bottom of that plant. Because once it starts to stop up at each node, then it tries, as long as it's in vegetative state, it tries to send out new brace roots to go grab some nutrients and moisture. So until it develops those and being able to pick up, residual fertility in the top 2 or 3 inches, David, there's a yield drag there. That plant's being cannibalized, and there's a yield drag there for sure.
Yeah, because during that rapid growth stage, when the crop's growing, she's using, depends on what the yield goals are, but anywhere from 6 to 9 pounds of nitrogen a day, she's sucking it up. And it's kind of like, I like to share. I know nobody in the audience, and I know you ain't never siphoned vehicle out of a car before.
I have.
It's pretty fast. But when you siphon it out, everything's good. But when that thing sucks some air, and then you got to start siphoning again, it's a whole lot harder the second time. Not only are you sucking some fumes, but the tank's a little bit deeper. So same type thing with the corn. When it gets that kind of stopped up, it's where it's sending out additional support. It's, that flow is not the same. And you can't make up, Dowdy, no matter when you lose yield, you can't make up for that yield loss. And the difference between, part of the successful growers is that they have been able to figure out how to not let yield loss happen throughout the growing season early. Because you can't make yield. We only protect what we have. So when I open up that Pioneer bag of seed, it's only doing one thing: yield's going downhill.
I agree. And, David, the growers out there that are listening and paying attention, they're starting to get it because, there's benefits to proper root development, that crown, but, P values elevating, especially early, that's important. But, stalk integrity, everything about it, the planting that I am so pleased to hear that what you've been seeing in the first 4 or 5 stops you've made is that growers are doing a better job on planting depth. So that's good. Not planting depth, but germination depth. That's more important. So they're not the same. Most people confuse that and say, "Well, I'm planting 2 inches." Well, you may plant it 2 inches, but what depth is it germinating after all the ground's settled? That 2 inches has got to be met for sure. And there's a lot of people saying, "Well, the ground is, when I look at the soil depth and where the soil is on the stalk and all that, I can get another 1/4 inch." David, I'm going to, just like Purdue does, the way they've always taught us, or Iowa State, how to check depth. I go from the bottom of the crown. I measure from there to the top of the seed, not the bottom, not in the middle, to the top of the seed. And I'm looking for a solid 2 inch. You can add the 3/4 of an inch. I'm asking for at least a solid 2 inch of germination depth from the bottom of the crown. You might cheat and go from the soil surface and get another 1/4 inch there. But in that scenario, why not just plant it a 1/4 inch deeper? I mean, that's my approach. So
Sure.
I'm looking for a solid two plus inches, 2.25 inches is where I'm at.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think growers are doing that. And now, what growers are getting ready to do is start side dressing corn. And when you and I were in Kentucky, that one gentleman said, "Hey, if y'all stick around to help me out, we're going to build a machine that not only knifes some in the middle, but we're going to put it on the sides." And I think today, with fertilizer prices the way they are, we need to be as efficient with that fertilizer as we can, and putting it beside the row with the easy drops or wide drops or homemade rigs. That helps out a lot. I know you got easy drops and you're putting them on both sides. You got wide drops and I'm using easy drops, putting it on one side. The whole goal is get that fertilizer where the good Lord's wicking that nutrients into the root zone. And, and
Yes,
we're,
sir.
we're checking that box. But
Well, if I can get the pilot to fly, um, we're gonna put out a fungicide. We're gonna put out some boron. We're gonna play with. There's enough yield potential in parts of that field for sure. I'm gonna spray the whole field, but there's enough yield potential out there. We're gonna probably look at some foliar nutrition. In addition, um, looking at tissue samples hard. There today, our oldest corn is a little over 2,000 GDUs. So, David, we're not fully kernel set. I probably got, if I had to guess, another 8 days, and I think we would be close. I think we'll be at that 2,400 GDUs at the rate. Well, we're collecting about 30 a day. So do the math. So if so 10, 12 days, I think we'll be set on GD on our kernels. And for me, I've looked at the forecast and nighttime temperatures is going to get up to like 72 in a 10 day. So I'm going to do my best to cool the plants down with the pivots, but I'm going to try to get a good fungicide out there. Probably hit it at least 2 more times. If I can get it sprayed this week and one more time, I think I'll be good from you know, a plant health perspective. And then we're going to look at nutrition. Um, boron, definitely going to be in it. Going to play with some humic and fulvics for sure. Try to get it in the plant faster. Um, Try to feed the microbiome on the leaf surface. I'm looking at and playing with some of that. Um, and David, we may chemigate some too, just simply to get coverage deeper into the canopy. I had today at 2,000 GDUs in where I know we had side dressed the way we were supposed to. I mean, the bottom leaf and half of the second leaf was starting to show a little bit of nutrient deficiency. So I ain't crazy about that, but with my travel schedule the way it's been, and I'll take it, especially on that sand, because it is straight up beach sand. It could rain 12 inches today, and tomorrow you could drive a tractor across the field.
Hey,
So
Dow, I got an idea for you. If you're trying to get uh, the product down deeper in the canopy and you're going to get a crop duster 2 times, that's what I think I heard you say. And you're going to make
yeah,
2 more stations. The first time you make that spray, just use some Gramoxone. That'll open up.
there you go. Appreciate that, buddy. Thank you for the good advice. I appreciate that.
Oh, I hear all that you're saying, and I'm like, oh man, because I know the next thing that I'm going to see down the road is you taking a video of harvesting green corn. But I've heard how you've made steps. Plant came up uniform, and then your phosphorus levels. We ain't talk a whole lot about that, but I know your phosphorus levels have been good because you said your crown's been good. No brace roots. Now you're getting sunshine, and you
that
put
2 week period's gonna hurt us, David. The last 2 weeks when we were getting rain, there ain't no doubt in my mind. I already saw some kernels at certain populations that they ain't gonna make it. But I'm hoping that the later planted corn we talked about, because if I'd have had my way, we'd have planted all in that one window. But
sure.
because we had a wheelbarrow go out, that was the only part to find was in Oregon, and it took us a week, 10 days, and then it rained, and then it cooled off and got in the 30s, and the first planted corn got a frost. Remember, all that corn, all my eggs would have been in one basket. So I've asked the Lord to guide me. He's been growing corn longer than me, and there ain't no doubt he knew what weather was coming. So I'm pessimistically optimistic that late planted corn that we talked about that had all the suckers hopefully didn't pay the yield penalty of the cloudy days the last 2 weeks. That's what I'm hoping. I'll know more in a few days.
Yeah. So no, that's exciting. Now you mentioned you'd be potentially fertigating and chemigating. Um, for guys that have pivots, um, how do you go about making sure that your system's doing a good job? Because I've fertigated, but I just haven't had the comfort knowing that I could chemigate and do accurate.
Well, the first thing is I check all the nozzles, and we put out rain gauges the length of the pivot to ensure that, number one, was it nozzled correctly? Was the pivot nozzled correctly based off the way it was designed for the amount of gallons per minute and the pressure? Did the man installing it put the right nozzle in the right place? And then we were on we did it with NRCS had a program where you could actually go out there and basically check and see how good a job the pivots were doing. And we would put a rain gauge out there every so many feet, and we would actually measure the output, the length of the pivot. So you might go across it with 3/10, and then we would measure it, and they keyed every one of those data points into a computer, and it gave a curve of what uniformity looked like. And then obviously, David, for me, agitation. Um, if it's still nozzled and it's putting out a good uniform rate of water all the way across it, now it's about agitation in that tank. Because even if I walk it on 100%, it could take 8 hours, 10 hours to make it around the field. So we'll have agitation in the tank where we're actually chemigating. Now, the way I'm set up today is I've got like a 1,500 gallon tank sitting by the well. We pull out of it at, my pumps pump 3.5 gallons a minute. So we figure out how much water, how much chemical, how many acres it's going to cover. We do the math, and then we do that way. I don't know any other way to get a more of a warm and fuzzy, David, than what I just told you. But I am a believer that keeping that product in suspension is important, as opposed to sitting there for 10 hours, right? At least with a sprayer, you're the sprayer now. You may have agitation on when you're spraying, or at least you're moving around. You're sloshing that chemical around. When that tank's sitting still, at the rate that what it cost, that's a problem for me too. I'm kind of like you, but what we do is we pull out of the bottom, We go back into the top. We've got a hose. We got a pipe that goes at a 45-degree angle, and I got a pump that pumps like 100 gallons a minute. And we made us basically a pipe that comes in at a 45. It goes all the way to the bottom corner, opposite corner of the tank at the bottom, and then we got a pipe that goes back and lays flat on the floor of that tank, and we drilled holes in it.
Sure.
And what we're doing, the bottom hole shoots straight up, and the pipe that's going in the diagonal shoots straight across. So what we're doing is we're spinning that water, and we're basically turning that tank over every 15 to 20 minutes on a 1,500 gallon tank.
Gotcha.
So we got agitation, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I know you also use a lot of that 0016, and you better have agitation with that.
It will not stay on suspension if temperatures get below 60 degrees, I promise.
Right. And then, you talk about me sitting on the sprayer. Yeah, I told you where being that Nutrien's our sponsor, I got their LI 700 in here. I got their Mad Dog glyphosate, and I got their salvo because we're doing some burn down right now on some beans. Fortunately, they're enlist soybeans, so I'm not too worried about injury, but the beans aren't up yet. So Dowdy, I know you're home now. I'm sitting in the sprayer. You're getting ready to travel next week. I've done my tour, so we got small grain to harvest, and I've always enjoyed my time with you. Seems like I always pick up something. I just learned about how your agitation is and your time. And so it's again my pleasure to be part of this Breaking Barriers podcast with you. And I will also want to thank Nutrien for being a continued sponsor. And most growers have planted their seeds, so may God bless the seeds that you've sown so that they will produce the crop that God's going to reward you with. So thank you, Dowdy.
Hey man, I appreciate your time, David. Everybody be safe out there, and until we talk again in a couple weeks.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.